When we lead with love, we carry it 24/7. And when we teach with love, we make sure our students don't forget it. To be black and to educate, to be superhero without the applause. It's to show up and show out no matter the cause. It's to play for the students no matter the winner. Because when we work arm in arm, the impact is bigger. Welcome to Untenured Podcast, where educators have a space to speak their truth. So tap in and listen to the very voices that mold our youth.
So Black Joys stand up, blessings Vibe Tribe, and let me also say bendiciones mi gente. As always, we say thank you for tuning in for another Conscious Convo for the Culture for Untenured Season 2. We're starting this episode with full hearts and even fuller joy. And as our motto goes, y'all, speaking your truth can never go left because it's your right. Today, our mic passes from being unshakable with the Mrs. Eva to another dynamic, deeply Black educator soul. Today's conversation is rooted in laughter, liberation, and the kind of Black joy that refuses to be sidelined. We're honored to welcome this activist, joy cultivator, and author of the Black Joy Project, whose work just celebrated its 10th anniversary. Wow. Their work reminds us that joy is not a luxury. It's a practice, a strategy, and a birthright. The Black Joy Project has been called a one-of-a-kind, breathtaking, and life-giving testament force that fuels Black life, the antidote to trauma narratives, the promise and the prayer, the gift that must be shared, and the reverberation of Black exuberance that often is glossed over and characterized as less critical than rage. They are a lover of words whose work has been featured in British Vogue, Essence Magazine, Vibe.com, and the Huffington Post. They don't have time for the narratives that censor Blackness as solely revolving around agony and grief, because that's cap. And this episode is for those who are no stranger to the weight of the world and find ways to keep going, to quote their beautiful book. And so they're a freedom fighting force, a polyglot poet of the people, a Dominican diaspora dreamer, a narrative nurturer, a culture curator with cariño, a Bronx-born bachata bred badass. And so Vibe Tribe, let's give it up for the Kleaver Cruz.
Oh my gosh, you need to do every intro I ever have.
Oh, baby. I think I'm going 3 for 3 with those. You know, I really take my time and try to like lift the essence of the beautifulness of each guest. And so that's you in a little bookseum nutshell. Thank you so much for being here, and happy Black History period, because we don't subscribe to months here. How are you feeling today?
That is a great question. I am somebody that their brain is constantly growing. So I have a lot of thoughts. I'm still processing some of the events from the last 24 hours.
Well, listen, let's not even tap dance around it. So before I even get into asking why you titled our beautiful conversation today Unleashed, how did Benito's Bowl hit you? Because I can't even tell you. I didn't go to bed right away, similarly to K-Dots, but in a different nuanced way. And I had to go back and I watched it like at least 5 or 6 times in the last 24 hours and still need to watch it some more. How did it hit you?
I definitely should watch it again. So off of the like visceral watched it live for everybody else. I have really mixed, and by mixed, I have very critical feelings about Latinidad and the ways that it gets used to, much like last night. It's very complicated, and I want to say I have a visceral hesitation around this pan-ethnic vision of Latinidad, and particularly around this thing that we're all the melting pot when we're not, and that everybody's not having the same experience. And there's something to be said about Bad Bunny being the face of it, and not a Tego Calderon, not even somebody lighter skin like me, to be that person to represent Latinidad, so to speak, and to call for this union. So there's that. And then I also can hold practically that people are, we're in like really intense times, and people want to feel good. They need to feel good. So I don't want to take that away from those people. What I'm saying is, and of course, because it's relevant to what we're talking about today, is it made me, because I saw a few people commenting joy, literally the word joy.
Yes.
And so it made me think about that of, we're now in a moment where a defense is don't kill my joy, or like that's the thing that brings me joy, which then it puts you in a tricky space as the person who might be receiving that statement, Because yeah, if you're not a terrible human being, you don't want to steal people's joy or take away from it. And if we're being serious, because I think I don't necessarily want to put it in Bad Bunny's mouth, but the way that last night was framed was as this radical, like, example of resistance and all of these things. That's the way it felt leading up to it, that we're about to have like this incredibly radical moment on the biggest US stage of the year. That it didn't necessarily give that for me. And like I said, I'm okay with being the bad guy or not being agreed with. What I'm saying is I can also hold the nuance of that really meant a lot to people. Even the thing of like, to hear countries like Haiti and Belize and like countries that may not always be included in the conversation of Latinidad to be very visibly included is a big thing, you know. And that this is a little bit nerdy, but one of the parts of the research I was doing this past year was on this Black feminist, anthropologist, thinker, amazing woman from Brazil named Lelia Gonzalez.
Yeah. Are you looking at my questions? All right. No.
Leads.
Can I get you to hold that thought?
Yes.
Are you able to, or you can feel free to say, no, Yaya, let me get this out because it's on my chest. But can you hold that thought? Because I have a whole question where you could like go off.
Yes. The only thing I will say is, to lend it to the later part of this conversation, is she offered a concept or a framing that I think would have been so powerful to use last night if more of us were aware of her work.
Yes.
That I think that would have brought it to another place because it was right there.
Yeah.
In terms of the sentiment, particularly that he closed with, because that was very intentional to say America is a lot of places and not just the U.S.
Place. And I love that you're lifting that. And thank you for really leaning in so that our motto that speaking your truth can never go left. Nothing about what you said can go left. And lifting that it's nuanced. Like two things can coexist and be true at the same time. I can find joy and honor the historic moment that was. But now I have this critical analysis of some of the symbolism, what was said, what wasn't said, who was left out, what should have been lifted. And so this is the space to have that conversation. And so if you've been listening to Kleaver already, I don't think it'll be any surprise why he titled this episode Unleashed, but maybe there's something else you want to throw in the pot for a figure of speech about why you titled our conversation that unword today.
That's a good question. Honestly, it was very visceral and personal. It feels like that's the space I'm in / I've always existed there, but more now of this consciousness, or what I just said, like I'm okay with being the bad guy. I'm okay with people not agreeing with me, and by bad I mean like not in the majority thought or in what could be perceived as the opposition,
the unpopular. Let's not say bad.
Unpopular.
You're the unpopular.
There we go. I'm an Aquarius, so we're okay with being unpopular. We're aliens anyways. So Unleashed is about that. Also the moment that we're in, spiritually and otherwise, that is really demanding us not just to be clear on the truth, but how are we going to move with that information, and how does that knowledge inform today the future or the worlds that we want to see, because we're really in that transition. That's not a thought anymore. We're in the middle of whatever the after is going to be. And and that means that we have to be, that's why I'm okay with being in that critical lens of something like Benito Bowl, for example, because it really does matter what's happening right now in terms of the near future and the one after.
And not to take away from his craft and his art and his intentionalism and some of the symbolism, but sometimes we get so excited for the inclusion that we forget that we're not there yet. Like this is just the tip of the iceberg. And so when I think about your beautiful book and how, you define Black joy as the antidote to trauma narratives, can you tell a little bit for our audience who may not have purchased your book yet, how you define it? Because it's so often that Black struggle is what's highlighted and lifted and promoted. And moreover, I saw recently, and this was really interesting to me, in one of your posts that you said Black joy is not the opposite of sadness. So can you explain to our listeners how you're defining Black joy to set the stage, and moreover, how it's not the opposite of sadness?
Such good questions. It really changes, but if we're going by part of what I discuss in the book, what I talk about is that the many hundreds of times I've been able to ask people, what does Black joy mean to you? It really boils down to being left alone to our own devices. It's really like that famous interview with Nina Simone when she says freedom is no fear. Like what
Yes,
have.
no fear.
That it feels kindred to that definition of freedom, of us being able to exist without being told what to do, without just like the liberty to exist fully, self-express safely.
Yes.
Or I should say with safety. And yeah, that's what it comes down to, is we just want to be. We don't want people telling us who to be, how to be, when to be, what to wear, what hair to have,
and always stopping us to then define it to help you understand my being. Like, please,
literally,
please.
it's just being. And I would also say is I just drew a blank, but yes, that's pretty much what it boils down to in the book, is this sense of I can just be without being told or instructed or controlled around my blackness. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That, and to that point is that as many of us that exist, which is millions and millions of us in the world, that's what blackness is as well, is that each of us get to be the entry point into understanding that.
Yes.
Which I think lends itself to that freedom. If we are allowing ourselves to be each other, then that leaves room to not restrict one another either.
And we're not a monolith, right? And so one of the beautiful guests that will be joining us after you, shout out to Camille Joy and the Moments of Joy podcast. She talks about neurodiversity, right? And when we think about autism and it being a spectrum, not to, align issues of the diaspora to neurodiversity, but that it literally is a spectrum, and that we should think about blackness in the same way, right? It's not this monolith. There are intersectionalities and things going on that make it a really nuanced and in-depth thing to experience. And the individual is the individual in that blackness.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
Well, I'm glad you said the thing about the monolith, because a few months ago I was writing, journaling, and I realized I committed to stop saying that, because I literally say that in the book, that blackness is not a monolith, more than once at least. And in the last year, a few months or so, I realized for me, I want to stop saying that, because yes, you know what I'm saying? We're not, because other groups don't have to use that framing of we're not.
Yes.
And part of that for me feels like an audition for our humanity, or like something around like we have to prove this thing that we are. When if we're saying we are full beings in the world, then that's a given that we're not a monolith. That's not something we have to. I don't think we have to spend. It's kind of like Morrison's statement about racism being a distraction. That there's nothing. I'm not putting anything on saying it's not a monolith. What I'm saying, it's made me think in the last few months of how else can we frame that argument so that it doesn't feel like we have to keep proving our humanity, or I don't even strive to be a human, to be honest, Aquarius, but just what I'm saying is, how do we get to, I think what we're really trying to say is that we are sentient beings with feelings and complexity and all those things, and we need to stop being framed as if one person represents the whole, because we know that's not true.
So can I see if I'm understanding what you're saying for our viewers who may be like, like, so when we say a comment like Black Lives Matter, right? Yes, they do. Why do I have to say it? Right? Now, some may argue you have to say it because the lived reality doesn't prove that it's true. So we say it to prove the thing, right? But on the other hand, the more that we say it, it's almost like we're subscribing to the idea that we have to constantly fight against their definitions. Not yours, you know what I mean, but theirs. And so in that same frame of thinking, you're going to have me pause and think about how often I say that phrase as well, because you're almost honoring the deficit-based thoughts about our people by having to name it.
Yeah, because I'm with you on that. That's something I say. I don't know why that recently in those last few months that stood out to me, because we say that all the time, that Black
and I almost think too that like sometimes we communicate so that other people can understand it, even if in that communication style, it's not our heart posture, right? So saying blackness is not a monolith is for that person who might be a little dense. Like that's a very plain way to say it. But if I could say it the way that my heart wants to, I wouldn't say it at all, type thing.
I think so too. And like you said, language does matter. It made me, the example you gave me made me think of the first time I went to Brazil, and I was at, I'm only seeing Black people. I'm like, why do y'all keep saying Afro-Brazilian if most people are Black?
Are here, or that,
Yeah.
yes.
And then they were like, the understandable answer of like, that's actually a political statement. And that because we continue to be erased, it is important for us to name Afro-Brazilian or Black things in this culture until that's understood the value and the power of that thing. So I'm not saying, what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you. I'm just being more mindful of a term like that because
Yes.
what I'm saying is, what are we really trying to say when we say that? Yeah.
What are we really messaging? And it'll make us all be so much more mindful about our words, which is another beautiful baton pass to this next question. So I'm sure you've heard the term, but for those who have not, intersectionality, right? Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term. And when I think about your very transparent and open identification as Black, queer, and Dominican, you sit at several intersections, which makes language so powerful and important. How do those layered identities both inform your writing and your activism, aside from what you've mentioned so far about your intentionality with what you language and what you message?
I love that question. It made me think of UNleashED again, because now at my big age of 30 something.
Let's go, Black on Crack.
I really am, like that joke about when as you get older, you start giving less Fs.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to wait till 80 to get there.
Hello.
It makes me, that those intersections now, especially the last couple of years, particularly doing the book and then being able to travel, talking to people, it's shown me the importance of being unapologetic, which I think ties to that definition of Black joy earlier of literally, like, for example, this conversation. This has been the most common thing in my experience around conversations about Black joy at the intersections that I've been in, is being in community with Black women, Black queer folks, with the Black people within Black communities that we get marginalized the most. And so I feel those intersections as of late, these last couple of years, has been an impetus or inspiration to speak my voice and to be more of like, if nobody's asking Black people what our joy is or what it means, and they're definitely not asking Black women, they're definitely not asking Black queer folks and so on and so forth, that how then do we, said a different way, it's the intersections have led me to ask the question of what does it look like for the world, not just other Black people, to witness the joys of the Black people who are most marginalized within our communities. What does that look like to listen, not to speak, to listen and witness to what it means when we say, what does joy mean to us? When we talk about what does the future need to look like to foster that joy, that's really, really important, because we know, literally facts, look at the history, is the people on this call, we're the ones that always show up for everybody. Even if we don't get the credit, we're literally the ones that are there organizing, making the copies, making the phone calls, cooking the food, blah, blah, blah.
Even if we don't get the support, even if we don't get the rest to keep doing the work, it's like show up.
You know what I mean? And so these intersections have shown me also that because society, many societies, not just the US, wasn't built with me in mind, then I don't have to follow it. And that I actually get to use that as fuel to unpack and work through whatever internalized isms I have. Just because I'm queer does not mean I don't have internalized homophobia or transphobia or those types of things. Just because I'm Black doesn't mean I don't have internalized anti-Blackness and these types of things. That that really sitting with that honesty so that I can move towards who I actually want to be for this world that I keep talking about that has to come after. That so those and that the blessing of that too, I would choose it every time to be Black and queer.
And I love that you lifted that. This might have to be one of the sneak peeks for you to say, like, the world was not built with me in mind, so why do I have to follow their rules? You know what I mean? And having that mindset is also a way to tap into some of that joy, that freedom, which is no fear, as Nina Simone said. All right, so let me not be, a hypocrite. You were trying to go there right out the gate. And I was like, no, wait, I got a question. And so again, because I follow you avidly on socials and you don't post a lot, but what you post is deep in quality, I saw that you spoke, like you've spoken already, to your recent trip to Brazil. And when I say her name, I just want you to go off. Tell us how you learned of her, her impact on your work, what you learned from her life story and her advocacy. And I loved that I learned from you, not just who she was, but how her work influenced Angela Davis, who's one of my like go-to GOATs, powerhouse Black women. Lelia Gonzalez.
Yes.
Go off. Go off.
First of all, you ate that pronunciation. Yes, Lelia, she came to me very spiritually about like towards the end of 2024. I had this really strong sense that I needed to return. I had gone to Brazil in 2016 as a participant in this international conference that was hosted in Sao Paulo. That was about prejudice, incarceration, and what Afro-Brazilian activists frame as the genocide of Black Brazilians. Because if you can believe it, the level of violence, like incidents of police murder, state violence, is actually exponentially worse than the US.
Really?
Yes, it's actually worse. Like statistically speaking, it's worse. The rate of murder of Black bodies and Black women too, because there's a high femicide rate, it's like unfathomable that it's worse than the US. But I think part of way to understand that is the population of Black people is also exponentially bigger than in the US. It's the biggest population. I think 60% of Brazil identifies as being of African descent, and we're 13% in the US. What I'm saying is that means there's more Black bodies to harm.
I see. Yep.
You know,
just
and
off the numbers. Yep.
Literally. And so to situate Lelia, she comes in. So I had this thing of like, I want to return, because at this point it's been almost 10 years. And I was just feeling this sense of I really need to go back. And so I like to be delusional in a sense. So I started studying Portuguese as if I was going to go to Brazil. So I started watching videos and stuff more intentionally. I hired a tutor. And I was just telling myself, like, we're going in March. I don't know how, but we're going. And
you manifested it, though. You manifested
it. And then literally like a month or two later, I get an email from Idris Brewster, who's the co-founder of Kinfolk. And he and I had met a year before at this gathering. And Idris literally is like, how can we support you as an organization? We want to support artists and storytellers. And so originally I was going to research this other amazing event that happened in 1977 in Lagos called Festac 77, which was the biggest gathering of Black artists and intellectuals and the term that they used was African and Black intellectuals and artists in the 20th century. Like 15,000 people imagine like the Olympics of Black and African art and culture in Lagos.
Nigeria, yes.
Nigeria. And so so I was curious, what was Brazil's participation? Because of course that was one of the biggest cohorts that participated. And that then led to me being a writer. So I'm studying this new language. I'm curious, what is the Black literary tradition or Black writers' traditions in Brazilian Portuguese? And that led me to Lelia's work. And it was really powerful because Lelia, again, historically situating her like prominence in terms of the work that she's most recognized for was from the late 70s into the 80s, early 90s, which she literally she was alive like many millions of Brazilians for the centennial of the abolishment of slavery. Slavery ended in 1888 in Brazil. So in 1988, Lelia was part of the critical acknowledgement of what do we do now that it's been 100 years. That's insane.
Yes.
That means that people like our moms, auntie. Well, we're old enough that people like our aunties and moms and stuff were literally like not just alive; they were kicking it.
Yes,
like they were in their lives by the time that Brazil was celebrating 100 years, which obviously is not that long after the U.S. But what I'm saying is like that. So it's an interesting parallel where in the U.S., Black feminism, they're in the 80s now, they're pushing back against that second wave and being more critical. There's a rise of Black women's voices within literature and all these different things. And so Lelia is a part of that. I think that's part of the importance of our work outside of Brazil is to make sure she gets included in those conversations. And when we're talking about Alice Walker, Audre Lorde, those were all her contemporaries. Yes. She was engaged in those conversations. Lelia was fluent in 4 languages since like a teenager. Wow. She wrote and translated in those languages. She traveled a lot around the world, including the US. And yeah, and so her work to me has been really powerful because she offered a Black lens around the Americas and the world from this very Brazilian perspective that I thought was powerful, because she was able to, and often in plain language, is make those types of connections. So one of the things that she's famous for is writing this really great essay about Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica.
Yes, who's on the currency, who led the
Literally.
biggest, I'll let you say it. Yep.
Well, context. Nanny of the Maroons, she is iconic for being like probably the most recognizable woman leader. I hate saying that because I was just gonna say leader, but of the Maroons in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Usually associated with Cudjoe of the Maroons.
Yep.
And so, but Nanny's that girl. That's why we still talk about her. And so, yeah, so Lelia makes this brilliant connection between Nanny in Jamaica or the Caribbean, what's going on in Brazil, and even was able to connect it to Africa, like the influence of the Moors, and even the Iberian Peninsula. So talking about Portugal and Spain and how all of those things connect, even through simple things like one of the historic like areas of Jamaica known for Maroons is called Moortown. And so she's making the connection of that name Moor literally comes from the Moors, but that also exists as Murray in English or Mauro in Portuguese. So she's making these really simple connections of like how all of this lays out for different, depending on where and what kind of Black person you are, that this all informs your experience. But the real point I want to get to, which is connecting to Benito Bowl, is one of the concepts that she's most known for is Americanidade, which I think in English translates to Americanity. Is that a word?
Yes.
But it is now because she made it up.
Hello, listen, we call ourselves a book museum, so we're gonna make up words and give you the definition.
You did. So if you could see the word on screen, she basically she was combining America, that word, with Africa. So America, and arguing that the people who most contributed, sculpted, created these Americas were Black and Indigenous people, and that she felt it was important that there was language, like we were talking earlier, to reflect that experience, that we, the Black and Indigenous people of the Americas, are the ones who make the Americas what it is. And so and that also she was using it as a way to push back against this U.S. dominance on America, which is what we saw last night when Bad Bunny makes a statement of the Americas are and names all of these countries. That's what I was saying is I think that would have brought it to a different place. Obviously, I'm not holding my breath to expect all of this from one performance, but it did make me think about if more of us knew Lelia's work, then we would have that would have changed the framing so that it's not this Latino thing, it's this Black and Indigenous contribution that makes this part of the world. And that's why that's powerful to name in this moment, that when we're naming Haiti, that's not just to include it, but to literally name that one of the origin points, historically speaking, geopolitically speaking, about the Americas starts on that island.
Yes. I mean, you know what you're making me think of too? I think I posted it recently, like Carlos Santana, very well regarded in the Latinx Hispanic music community, that he says, let's not forget that Latin music is African music, right?
Hello.
And a lot of the things that they like to compartmentalize to have us separated all really root back to Africa. Even when and speaking of Brazil, I was recently looking into the art form of capoeira because my son, who didn't really care for boxing, right? And when I looked up the real history of what that art form is, yes, they used it for, to engage in like faux fighting, but it really was a way for them to resist. And it was a coded language, very similar to like how corn rolling was. It wasn't grades and stylistic. It was like paths and roots, and it was a coded system for the way to resist. And so what I really love about what you're lifting about Lelia Gonzalez is that we need to do more to uncover or dig through the archaeology of inspiration of our icons, right? So she inspired Angela Davis. People know Angela Davis, but not her, right? When we look at Bad Bunny, like Tego Calderon, right?
Hello. He was right there.
Father reggaeton, right? And I think at moments he like flashed at some of his music, but still, like, how can you really understand the inspiration of the folks who get propped up and rightfully so, are some of the icons of our culture. And it takes some archaeological digging to do
I
that.
think so too. And honesty, right? Because part of what happens all the time, and it literally happened last night, even this morning when I'm looking through like posts and comments and stuff, is there's this unwillingness to acknowledge what we just said. Like it's interesting how when Black people, particularly Afro-Latino, I don't like that term, but let's use that for the conversation's sake.
Yes.
When there's a statement made like that actually came from us, or we're the root of that, there's this intense pushback, and then the response is, well, we're Latino. It's our cult. You know what I'm saying? That's like, it doesn't take away from this thing that y'all love by acknowledging, because then that means that you have to, which reminds me of one of my other favorite thinkers of all time, Toni K. Bambara, that she has this really amazing essay called On the Issues of Roles. And I love it because part of what she keeps insisting is to look inward, that if you're being serious about radical acts and all these things, that actually means to form oneself first. And I think that in those arguments about like, for example, last night at the end, when I'm seeing all these people with the straw hats and they're playing bomba, really is what they're doing, which is an Afro-Puerto Rican practice. And I'm looking at the group, and it's actually what happens often is that you don't really, and not just Black people, I mean like dark-skinned Black, like there's not enough of a presence of those people when there's entire regions of Puerto Rico, if we're just talking about Puerto Rico, that have them. My family's friends with those people. That that's what I mean. So then if I make that statement about, well, this was a bomba moment and I didn't really see visibly Black people, not the ambiguous ones or the ones we kind of had to like guess. I didn't see any like unambiguous Black people. Then I will get pushback or argument with like, well, this is a Puerto Rican thing. Yes, it has African roots, but this is, I don't want to speak, I'm not Puerto Rican, so I don't want to harp on that too much. What I'm saying is that's just an example of what happens is that when we acknowledge
only parts,
it's disingenuous is what I'm saying. And so that's hard for it to be radical then if we can't even the beginning of that performance in the sugarcane fields. Who was working the fields at the beginning? After they killed the indigenous people, who got brought to work the cane fields?
The Black people. The Africans. The enslaved Africans.
And that's not the image that you get. And obviously that's complicated because then, of course, if he includes a bunch of Black at the beginning, they're like, oh, well, you're just trying to talk about slavery, blah, blah. So I get that. But what I'm saying is like those little things really matter because then otherwise what we keep doing is perpetuating the story of we're like this melting pot and this is a mix of three cultures of European and African and indigenous. And it's like, no, it's not, because if we're listening to literally the music, salsa, Black, reggaeton, Black, you know what I'm saying? Like literally the music that we're listening to last night, that's part of the origin. Yes, we can talk about how Spanish guitar got incorporated into certain sounds and all this other stuff. But if we're being honest, the origin of Latino culture, most of it, like Lelia says, is African and indigenous.
Well, listen, this is an invitation to dig deeper, right? Love your icons, love those who are centered, but also really do your research. # read a book and dig deeper into where it really comes from. So we're going to do a virtual clock it for you and for Lelia Gonzalez. And thank you for all that she's done and for lifting her voice in this space.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a side note on this. That's not clock it.
This?
That's a misappropriation of ballroom language. There's this, which is a little clap, but this is made up. This is nothing.
That is not.
That's a reuse or appropriation of something totally different. There's the term clock it and there's applause. Those don't go together.
Watch me edit that right out because you're gonna have me. I'm just kidding. It's a teaching tool. I'm gonna leave it right in because part of being in this space is being open to learning things like that. And so thank you for the correction. And watch me quickly adapt and shift. So I'll say it, but I won't do the gesture because I can't be down for this and then doing things that go against it. All right. So let's switch gears a little bit. We've been going deep into identity and uncovering some powerful hidden figures who should be known. And we want to engage in one of our first Booksium micro segments. We like to think of it as our twist on Would You Rather. Some of them are light, some of them are heavier. You don't have to unpack any you don't want to, but you're picking which one you would rather. You ready? Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Be the teacher of the teachers or the student of the students.
The teacher of the teachers.
Maduro or tostones?
Controversial.
I know.
Tostones.
Ooh, okay. Not. I'll ask you.
I'm
this.
in the unpopular group. I told you.
I know, and I'm here for it. Okay, start every day with an affirmation, or end every night with a love letter to yourself.
I'm a morning person, so I would say start with affirmations.
Okay, music that moves you, or prose that empowers you.
Why would you do that to me?
I don't know.
Music.
Music, perfect. And you're allowed to plead the fifth because it's not about putting my people in any stressful hot seat. You understand? So plead the fifth when you want to. All right. Smaller classes or bigger budgets?
Smaller classes.
Radical transparency or tactical silence?
Tactical silence.
Okay, here's another hot one. Spades or Uno?
Friend. I've been playing Uno a lot lately.
What is going on, my people? Okay, so we're like 6 for 6 for this season. Folks are picking Uno. Listen, I'm not mad at it. He said what he said. They said what they said. Excuse me. Black joy celebrated loudly across the diaspora or protected quietly in intimate spaces?
Wow. I think I would go with the intimate spaces.
Boom. A lifetime without travel or a lifetime without books?
What?
You're
How
like,
can you do this to me?
Monday, what are you doing, Yaya? I can't.
I feel like I'm in Sophie's Choice. Let me see.
You complete. You get a hall pass.
Yes, I'm a pass.
All right, perfect.
That's brutal.
Isn't that one? And I tried that one for the first time with you. All right, here we go. Black joy centered in every classroom or protected in every Black household?
Protected in every Black household.
Go back and meet your great-great-grandparents or forward in time to meet great-great-grandchildren?
Great-grandparents.
Constantly have to defend Black joy in a room of racists or constantly protect it from someone who wants to commodify it?
The commodification.
Lose your favorite word forever or never be able to invent a new one again?
Lose my favorite word.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you just invented a word. No, you didn't. You didn't invent a word. That was an actual word. That was actually a word. And so as a lover of words across languages, how do words heal, transform, or resist? And moreover, can you share a word or phrase that holds special power for you? Cariño?
Cariño, I love that word a lot. Because it's one of those that it's like there is a translation, but it feels more like a feeling than when you know what it means, than a translatable word. Because affection doesn't hit the same, I think, as cariño. Well, to answer your question first, language is, as a writer, obviously I value it. I think it's something that we can use to make sense of the world, but not be strictly beholden to. One of the things I like to say a lot is we should commit to the mission and not the vehicle. That, for example, civil rights or human rights, it's been so many things. There was the civil rights movement, then it was the Black arts movement, all these different things. But the mission was always Black liberation. And even now, then it was Black Lives Matter, then it was the movement for Black lives and all these different things that I feel is more important when it comes to words and language and these types of things, to be committed when it comes to liberation and not the books and the words and the things that will get us there, because all of that can and will change. And so I think we have to allow language to live and change and do what it got to do organically the way we are. In terms of my favorite phrases or words, cariño actually is one. I don't think about it that much, but I do love that word to describe that word. There's a term in Portuguese, saudades, which also is one of those that you can't really translate, but it means like longing or missing a person or a thing. And it's just a term you use when you really feel this strong, like I really would love to see you, or I miss you, or that type of thing. It's kind of similar in Spanish. We have the word añelo, which is another one that's like hard to describe or to translate. But añelo also means like this type of longing or
missing.
like you can't quite grasp it, the thing that you want. So I like Agnello too, for that matter. I just like words. I just like description. This is why I like Morrison. She knows how to
Yes,
describe the
her
whole world.
is, and again, what the words that you're lifting that are hard to define, you kind of experience them, is a total vibe, right? Because a book is a book, and you can say, oh, it has a spine, it has pages, and it can be very literal. But if you're talking about like spiritual and connection and like real deep rooted feelings, those are things and words that, if the harder they are to explain, the deeper they are. So thank you for bringing that too into this space. And when I think about your book, yes, it's right here. We Play No Games, the Black Joy Project. How do you hope educators and community leaders use this book to reshape their classroom, their spaces for young people? Because it certainly is an educational tool. How do you hope
I love that question. Mm-hmm. Well, one is the intention behind when I was writing it was trying my best to write at a high school level so that as many people can read and understand it, so that there's not a ton of complicated language or things you got to stop to like look up in a dictionary. Yeah. Because I was keeping in mind young people, but also we know most adults, I think it's like 6th grade education or something, 8th grade education, yes. The average adult in the US. Also, if you don't like to read, or that's not what calls you initially.
It's a visual love letter, yes.
So there's a whole visual conversation that isn't directly referenced in the writing, but there's a whole visual conversation that is made up of over 100 pieces of art from 53 different artists from around the world, so that, and different mediums, just as that, which also makes me say I want to give a shout out to my editor, Rakia Clark at Mariner HarperCollins, because she was the one who really pushed that vision. Initially, my thought was to include portraits because that's what I had been used to with the Black Joy Project when we did all these different photo booths. So my thought was we're just going to include these really beautiful portraits so that people can see that type of joy. And Rakia was like, cute. But let's really, the way that you're talking about the world and stuff in the writing, we need to see that visually. And so I spent 2 years becoming an amateur art curator. And so the visual part is also as a way to ignite or spark feelings and memories. That one of the ones that people get drawn to a lot is there's an image of like old grandmother's hands splitting peas or something, and so many people are like, oh, that makes me think of my grandma and that type of thing. So those types of moments, or pictures that look like it could have been the same artist and they're totally different, like the picture of a pregnant woman is adjacent to a portrait of another Black woman that they look really similar, but it's totally different people. Exactly, that looks like it could exist in the same world.
Yes. And I was trying to find the grandmother one because, no cap, I was drawn to that one. Not sure if you know or some of our listeners know, but the Bookseum was named after my maternal grandmother. And in our brick and mortar were some of her heirlooms sprinkled around that set the stage to themes of books and to spark conversation. And when I read your book the first time, that image literally was the one that jumped out at me.
I love that. That's
my young days and getting my hair braided or sitting in the kitchen while she made bacalitos and
literally. Oh my God.
Literally. And I love how art and your book, it goes in and out of like testimonies and anecdotes and essays and visuals that just inspire that warmth and feeling of remembrance.
So shout out to the artist that we're talking about is Kiki Toussaint, who's a Haitian artist. So that presumably was her Haitian grandmother's hands. And to answer your question as well, is that in the writing, it's also not to offer, it's a lot of storytelling so that, because again, Morrison famously said in her Nobel acceptance speech that narrative is one of the most powerful ways that humans learn, that I wanted to include, and because I'm a storyteller, to include as many of those stories as possible. So instead of being like, well, this is this, I just felt it was more important. If you can hear a story about somebody's experience, hopefully that you can latch onto. If it relates to you, sure, but more of it is just to expand your thinking.
Yes, and that's why storytelling is not a luxury. It's actually a cultural necessity. It's a cultural necessity. And so if you had to teach a course called The Art of Black Joy, what would your first assignment be? Either
to
connect to
read
this book, to read the book.
to read Toni Morrison's 1994 Nobel acceptance speech, because I've done that a lot with my students. But the reason I have people read it at the beginning of something is because that speech is really about the power of language and the ways that language dies. And she says not just dies, it's the people who kill them. And that ultimately she says, I forgot how the first part, but she says we do language, that Black writers do language, that some people tell stories and this type of thing, but we do the language. That to me is really powerful about how we get to hold the pen, so to speak. You don't have to be a writer to be able to understand that power of stories are that powerful, they are that important, and that we know, hello, we're living through we're in the lava, to use Cardi's word.
Yeah.
That part of the thing, which is not new at all, is narrative. Is that a story is being told about what this country is and should be, and that is used to measure the rest of us. I would start with that, is for us to first talk about what is language and what is the power of language. Then we could get into what then does joy mean, or how do we use framing like joy or Black joy.
I love that. Okay, so then I also, not to bring up this widely popular award ceremony, but in the spirit of an organic conversation, right? I follow Lovia Jai. She just switched over to a Substack that's highly alliterative, so it already speaks my language. And she presented a school of thought that, again, immediately I adopted, and it flipped the script for me. And I'm sure you've heard this saying, oh, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And why am I bringing this up? So did you watch the Grammys or any part of it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so perfect. So this will be even better, right? So Pharrell, he gets the Dr. Dre Impact Award, right? And he goes up and he gives a speech, and his exact words, and I'm going to read them so I quote him correctly. It says, never stop grinding, never stop working. Never stop grinding, never stop working, stop doing anything else but working. And then he says, and if you do what you love every day, you'll get paid for free. So that was Pharrell's comment, right? And so I'm reading Lovey's Substack, and she goes, we have to lay that to rest, right? Because her thing is that, and I'm going to quote her directly, when the majority of people watching have to work for the rest of their lives by necessity, not because it fulfills their souls, but because they have bills and children in a world that demands their labor, whether they love it or not, that this saying has been floating around for too long, and it needs to be laid to rest. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And so she says there are many of us who love what we do: writers, creatives, gifted storytellers, coaches, teachers, artists. We are all walking in our purpose assignment, and we know this is what we were put on here on the earth to do, but it's still work. It still requires discipline and sacrifice and showing up on days when you'd rather stay in bed. And that the love didn't make it easy, the love made it worth it. And those are two very different things. So what say you as you hear that? Because we all have heard that before. And another thing that she lists is like the passion and gifting alone doesn't magically remove the labor. It doesn't erase deadlines or burnout or difficult seasons or financial stress. So to promote on that grand stage, that, keep working, keep grinding, never stop. What's your take on that?
I'm not a fan of Pharrell, so I think he tends to speak from this very detached place of, Pharrell, you literally are like one of the wealthiest people. It's just not, you're not relatable in that way.
You're not rooted.
Yeah, so for you to be talking about, it kind of gives that other trope of, well, I did it, so y'all should, like that. Then it's possible for you.
No.
Yeah, that's like.
And here's the thing: you're sharing that message, but if you wanted to stop working tomorrow, you could.
You could. You literally don't have to work again.
Yeah.
Yes, and to Lovey's point, I think that is true too. Of it's always a type of labor, really, a type of work. And more practically, as I think what I heard when you were saying is, we got to eat, so.
Hello.
Love what I do, but I do have to pay bills. I have mouths to feed. I have things to do. So
I was like, get your icon award. Gone.
It does make.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say it does make me think about. It is one of the through lines of the book as well. Of when we're experiencing joy or activating it or creating it, that it might not be in that moment that it eradicates everything, but it does contribute to something bigger that's possible or will come. So that cautiousness around, like, which I think is similar to what we're talking about, is there's a way that Black joy can be used as an escape or an escapism that I think is really detrimental and harmful, because it takes away from the reality of our lives, that we don't experience joy in a vacuum. That's always in it. That's why, to go back to what you said earlier about me saying Black joy is not the opposite of sadness. It's not, because it's a, it's another finger on the hand, so to speak.
Yes.
That those all are happening at the same time, that we know literally. Something I've really been thinking about in the last couple of days, something that this journey has taught me, and I think any of us understand this. You don't have to work on Black joy for 10 years to understand this, but the people who experience the most, like, tragedy, sadness, just like the really ugly parts of life, often are very, very, those, when you see that person like just full of smiles and all of that, they often are no stranger to some of the most painful elements of life. And that I think, and to me, that is so inspiring, that that's a choice that they're making, right?
Yes.
To like,
that's the name of one of your chapters. Joy is a choice.
Choose joy, exactly. That to me, that's so powerful and inspiring, because when you zoom out from the individual, that is something a lot of us share collectively within these I'm going to say these Black experiences with us, that we know. That's part of why I haven't met a Black person that didn't know what joy. I didn't introduce them to joy. It was like,
yes,
oh, that might be the word, or I never thought about it that way. But I've literally never, anywhere in the world, have not met a Black person that didn't understand that power.
Yeah.
Because that means that we also understand what it means to have the absence of joy. We understand what it means when that's not around. When what we're talking about, when you out here doing 12-hour shifts, not knowing what's going to happen next, but you're having some type of faith that this is going to move you towards at least materially better, if not towards this bigger thing that you're passionate about.
Yes.
That, yeah, I'm just thinking about that. That's such a, it's an, I'm not going to say unfortunate, but it's part of what has come with, part of what we inherit, is that in the same way that we inherit, all these studies about inherited traumas and post-traumatic slave syndrome and all these things, that means we also have to tell the fuller picture, which means we also that we also inherited those joys. We also inherited, that's literally why in this country in particular, there's still people doing stuff like jumping a broom when they get married. That's inherited piece of joy. That's to remember when Black people were told you're not even allowed to be in love, that there was still another way to commemorate that outside of whatever system was making it official that you're married to somebody
that we created. And what you're making me think of is I think it was it was Yara Shahidi, but I think she was on the Oprah show, or she was on some talk show, and they were like, we just love how light you are, you always exude like this optimism. And she goes, well, one of the things that I don't talk about a lot is the depths of darkness that I navigate to show up this light.
Exactly.
And that's literally what you're speaking to. And that's what resonated with me when you made that comment. And moreover, in the spirit of Angela Davis, like one of my forever goats and inspirational vibes, what did she say? It's that in the collectiveness, that's where we find reservoirs of hope and optimism. Hello. Right? So even in spite of whatever traumas or struggles, that collective community, whether we called it joy, that's where that emotion was happening. So I think I already know. Well, no, I don't know the answer to this question, but I know what's not the answer. It's not a Pharrell song. So one thing we ask every guest, we ask for their hype song. So let's you wake up and you're dragging and you're like, all right, I gotta get locked in. What's that song or the songs that you're putting on that get you hype, get you in the right frame of mind to show up as your best, beautiful self?
Oh my God, that's a good question. To be honest, I actually been in a more sad, melancholy mood lately. So I haven't been listening to super energizing music. But because I've been studying Portuguese, I'm listening to more music in that language. What came to mind was, oh my God, I just drew a blank. But there's this group I came across that was really iconic in Brazil called the Fat Family. It was a group It was a group of siblings. I think it was like 7 of them, led by one of the sisters, who her voice was amazing. Like she really could have been singing with the best of our time in the U.S. in the 90s. But anyways, they just have their vibe, just the whole thing of like seeing a Black family that isn't like these like skinny model types,
Yes.
and they're singing down together. And they always had like fun choreography, and I love listening to them and watching their videos because it made me. I feel like I created a memory that doesn't exist of my little, like high school self in the 2000s. Could have been listening to these people at the same time that I was listening to Mary J and all these other people.
Well, I'm gonna check with you and look up one of their songs and see if that's the one you don't mind us adding to our untenured hype tape. And since you're episode 18, you'll be track 18, and it's a way for folks to stay connected musically to the vibe of this combo.
I love that.
So I'm gonna look up the Fat Family and we'll see what song we could add to that hype tape. All right, so you ready for our next micro segment? This one might you might have like leaning back like, really, Yaya, why are we doing this? But it's called Deuces. I'm going to give you 3 harmful realities. Some you might have heard of, researched, experienced firsthand. And if you had your magic cruise wand and could remove one tomorrow, which one got to go? But they're all harmful, but they're all realities. You ready? Okay. And you can plead the 5th. I told you, we're not trying to stress our folk out. All right, here we go. The first one, using text about Black pain without any text about Black joy.
That's the options.
Yeah, there's 3 options. You got to pick one to go. The second one, centering white authors to teach about Black experiences, or ignoring Black voices in literature, history, and art.
These are very good, tough questions. Take out, you said?
Yep, one got to go tomorrow.
The second one.
Boom, centering white authors to teach about Black experience. Here's the next one, rewarding assimilation instead of honoring authenticity. Over disciplining Black children, or ignoring social emotional development and cultural assets.
Jinkies.
No right or wrong. And again, you could be like, today this is my answer, but tomorrow it might be that. You're not bound.
What was the first one?
Rewarding assimilation instead of honoring authenticity.
Yikes. And the second one was?
Over disciplining Black children in schools. All of this is in the context of schools, or ignoring social emotional development and cultural assets.
I would say of those 3 evils, the second one.
The second one. Okay, boom, over disciplining. Next one, teachers who believe equity is a checkbox. Boop. Teachers who think fairness is a form, just give them a survey. Or teachers who think liberation is someone else's problem. Like, we're here to teach math, not revolution.
Yikes. And it's sad we've seen every kind of teacher.
Yeah. That's a separate TED Talk.
Working in schools. My instinct was the first one.
Which one was that? Let me see. Teachers who believe equity is a checkbox. Perfect. Here's another one. Teachers who promote Black history, but crush Black futures. Teachers who teach Black and brown students but aren't willing to learn from Black and brown students, or teachers who celebrate compliance but will not cultivate genius.
Ooh. That feels like those psychology tests that is like different ways to the same thing. The third one.
Compliance and not cultivate genius. All right, and here's our last one. Whitewashed curriculum, white savior mentality, or white fragility.
Lord have mercy.
All the above.
That part. Right fragility is very annoying.
Yes. All right. We're on time for your fragileness when you actually are the initiator of most of the trauma. Here we go. Okay. And with that, we say, oh, hell no. This is where our guest gets to organically pick a topic and current events in their heart and their mind that they want to lift forward and just tell everybody we're saying, oh, hell no to this emphatically. And what say you, Kleaver? What are we saying, oh, hell no to today?
Ooh.
He's like, how can I pick?
Right. The list is so long.
So you don't even have to explain one. You could just rattle off. Like, I'm saying, oh, hell no to this, to that, to that.
Oh, okay. Let's start with the obvious. ICE.
ICE out. Mm-hmm.
The Israeli, occupation of Palestine and the ongoing genocide there of Palestinians. Obviously, the very bigger power-backed violence and conflicts happening in Sudan, in the Congo, in those regions of the world. The rate of femicide in the Dominican Republic. I think it's like the 3rd highest rate of murders of women in the Western Hemisphere, which is insane for such a small island. The ongoing state-sanctioned violence in Brazil against Black bodies, Black people. My street not being cleared yet, and it's been over a week.
Listen, I love that you're bouncing around between levity and power to the people, and then the snow, and in that order, in that order. Yes.
When you have to cook your own food every day and clean your own dishes and clean your house.
And there you have it. And so from social justice, diasporic impact down to like the daily grind of just adulting, it's all got to go. We're saying, oh, hell no to it all. And I love that you're laughing because if nothing else, we have to have joy even in these moments. My Lord, what times? All right. And then our last micro segment, we know what it is to be in spaces. And as eloquent and as intellectual as we are, sometimes we have to mask up and put a filter on what our real response might be. So Kleaver, you get to clap back, say the first thing that comes to mind when you hear what they say and what your response might be. You ready?
Yes.
So they say, why bring queerness into Black joy? That's a separate issue. You say,
LOL. Those are inseparable the way that womanhood and all the other intersections of Blackness is.
Can I snap? Please don't tell me my snap is misappropriation.
It's not. It's not.
All right, perfect. They say joy can wait until the test scores improve. Like, we don't have time for joy in the classroom. It's a national crisis how poorly U.S. students are doing academically compared to their counterparts. You say.
What is the goal to educate these young people on? And are we willing to sacrifice a deeper sense of well-meaning and being for the sake of performing well within a system that doesn't actually keep these young people in mind in the first place?
Come on, Kleaver. On a Monday morning, I would hate to have this conversation on a Wednesday afternoon with you. All right. So here's the next one. They say, this is America. Learn English. Like, stop with all this bilingual that you say.
There's no official language in the U.S. And it's literally proven that being multilingual, if not polylingual, is better on every front.
It grows your brain. Okay, let me not go down. Google it if you want to know what they are talking about. Here's the next one. They say, but pain is what makes the Black experience a powerful story. Like, okay, joy, but the pain. Let's talk more about the pain. You say.
What does it serve you to define the experience of a people through the things that they did not receive or the pains that they experienced without willing to see the nuances of those experiences?
And as the unshakable Queen Eva would say, come on, because she was saying all the time, come on, she was going to church. All right, and then here's the last one, which is like totally asinine. Expletives allowed. They say, your beautiful book, The Black Joy Project, should be banned. Oh, you say.
You know, that will encourage more eyes on it. So if that's how
bring
you
it on book sales, bring it on.
I will encourage more eyes. And again, similar to the last thing is, you need to check in with yourself on what will motivate you, not just to ban a book, but this one in particular.
Hello. And as you say in your beautiful book, quote, storytelling is one way that we can choose joy as a form of resistance. And so we thank you for sharing your story with us today. The Black Joy Project, available on bookshop.org. We're not promoting Amazon here.
Yes.
Go shop your Black indie bookstore. Kleaver, you are such a vibe. I have to thank, I would be remiss if I didn't thank your former teacher, Camille, because she is the plug to the and a quick fun fact, I was getting an award and she was in the audience, and before we knew we would come have the award ceremony in person, they asked everybody to give a video, and sure enough, my video had the Black Joy Project in the back. And is she your sixth grade teacher?
She was my 7th grade math teacher.
Your 7th grade math teacher was in the audience, and she saw the book in the background. She came up to me and she goes, Yaya, that book that you have in the back that you just talked about in your award, when I received the award, she goes, he was my student. He's amazing. I have to connect you guys. And so look at how ancestrally divine and serendipitous not just a book is, but our people are in the connection. And so I want to give you the final word. Any closing words for our listeners, our viewers, or for those that this YouTube or audio might pass by?
Of course. Well, one is to echo what you just said. Well, I call her Miss Johnson. even though I'm
Oh, okay, yeah. But you grown now. Just kidding.
I
She's
know
your
I could, but it just feels weird calling her
Miss Johnson. I'm sorry, Miss Johnson. We love you.
Miss Camille Johnson. But one is thank you to her, because literally that when the three of us got connected, I hadn't spoken to her. I was in 7th grade in like 2004. No, 2002 or something, 2003. It was a long time ago. So to know that that book brought the three of us together was really encouraging, which is also to say in general that those types of moments have happened a lot for me. So I just want to express the acknowledgement of, it's always an affirmation to end up in a conversation like this one, where to people that, well, I didn't know you like that, but that this brought us together is very affirming, because all of this started because I was really, really sad. I didn't have a vision of books and all these things that have occurred. I literally was in grief, and I was just trying to figure out, how do I feel better at the end of a month, at the end of that year, because I'm the type of person that I know I'm called to inspire. And so I wanted to focus on that while learning that to be able to do that, you have to take care of yourself. That this has been a journey of healing. That's why one of the chapters of the book is healing. Oh, hold on one second.
I love it.
And that's why one of the chapters is called Healing, because this has been a journey of healing. And so that if you're listening and you're like, I can't find no joy, I can't identify that, then you're actually in the right place, because it is important to acknowledge those things and that you're not crazy. Aside from whatever's happening to you personally, we're living in a world that is fueling us with reasons to be upset and sad and hurt and all those things, very understandably. So give yourself that grace that the world actually is chaotic, whether you want to acknowledge that or not. And that does something to all the things we named, the things we inherit that wasn't even our personal experiences, but inform how we navigate the world, then our actual personal experiences. And that, again, to quote Tony K. Bambara, is if we're being, this is me paraphrasing, but if we're being serious about radical acts and revolution and all these things, that actually starts with oneself. And that there's nothing more radical than, like she talks about, for example, it's easier to do shit like this, to be on a camera and talking your shit and blah, blah, blah. When actually, do you have a little brother that needs help with homework, that's sitting at the house waiting for somebody to help him with his homework, and nobody's there because you're over here running your mouth? Are you, like, just taking care of those types of, the things that people can't see is more important. That, you can give speeches and do all of that, but it's more important that, did you like get that grocery or whatever for your grandma that she really needed? Did you show up in certain ways that you were expected to for your family or your friends or that type of thing? Like, all of that is more important. This actually is, that's not trivial. That all of that is contributing to this world that we need and deserve to exist in, where we actually are loved for who we are and not what we do or can produce. That's important. That I don't think that's something to play down at all. That it's okay if you can't. Everybody's not going to be Martin Luther King and
hello,
Ella
but you
Baker
can still engage in radical revolution by caring.
Because that was one person.
Yes,
Martin Luther King, Ella Baker, all these people were individuals within movements. You understand? Ella Baker, all these people, they couldn't do what they were doing without all the masses, not a group of people, but the masses of people that they were organizing or working with. That all of those people, even if we don't learn their names, it's you, it's us, it's me. That we don't have to be these iconic historic figures to contribute. That even if all you ever did, let's say you're a parent, all you ever did was raise amazing kids, you contributed significantly to the world.
Come on,
you did.
Well, there you have it. Unleash the power of healing and understanding inward, because that is a revolutionary act, to deeply care for and take care of those that you love around you. Encourage, empower, support, and broadens perspectives. And so thank you for tuning in. Y ya tu sabe, is bigger than a month. It's a mindset. And here's our last humble reminder on behalf of today's beautiful guests. Stay unleashed. Peace, love, and forever Black joy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay.